Good afternoon, good afternoon, members. I'm Brian Kelly, Chief Executive Officer for the High Speed Rail. My CEO report is just going to cover really two areas. The first is while we had no meeting in August, no public meeting in August, there was a lot of activity that we worked through as an authority. I wanted to cover some of that with the board members, just walk through some of the things that we've accomplished over the course of the last couple of weeks, and then I want to describe for you what lays ahead with the board meeting both in October and the one that follows in November. So first, again, while we did not meet in August, I did forward a CEO report to the board, and we made that available on our website. There were some highlights of progress for the program that occurred between the July board meeting and today, and I wanted to just recap some of those. Of course, as you've heard already today, the State of California did execute the NEPA assignment agreement with the Federal Railroad Administration. As the board heard, this assignment is an environmental streamlining measure that has the state stand in the shoes of the FRA for purposes of carrying out the federal environmental review process. We are the first railroad project in the nation to be granted this assignment, and we are working closely with the FRA to ensure its success. And so I just wanted to recap that. Also in August, we settled the last CEQA lawsuit on the Fresno to Bakersfield section with the Kings County settlement. I want to particularly call out special kudos to our legal team and to board member Richards for spearheading the negotiations to get that litigation settled and for establishing a very important partnership with Kings County that will be important in the days and weeks ahead. Also in August, the governor's office announced key appointments to our executive team, and I'm particularly proud of these appointments. That announcement of 4 new folks working at the authority include the first ever female chief counsel, the first ever female chief engineer in the authority's history. I think that's very significant. We've also elevated Meg Cederoth to our Director of Planning and Sustainability, and we announced Melissa Figueroa as our new Director of Communications. The board will have the opportunity to meet each of these new additions and exceptional professionals at our October hearing in Sacramento. Of course, as is evident today, the Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins also appointed the members and reappointed the members to our board, both board member Henry Perea and the reappointment of Ernie Camacho. Congratulations to you both. On Labor Day, we were pleased to announce that we passed 3,000 workers dispatched to our construction project in the Central Valley. This is, of course, further evidence of the strong economic impact from the investment in high-speed rail in California. We now have over 3,000 workers and more than 500 small businesses that have worked on this project to date, and that number continues to grow as construction opportunities expand. Last week included 2 more important announcements that are worth covering with the board. The first was our initial action taken under NEPA assignment, in which we released publicly the draft final EIS for the Central Valley Y section. The document is available now for public review and comment, and we look forward to bringing the record of decision for this section to the board in 2020. The second announcement we made last week was the execution of a memorandum of understanding with Los Angeles Metro, LA Metro, in which we outlined our cooperation and collaboration for the reconstruction of the LA Union Station project. The authority is providing $423 million toward that project, which will improve regional transit services in the short term and accommodate high-speed rail operations into Union Station in the longer term. Board members Camacho and Lowenthal were integral to the MOU's execution. I want to acknowledge them and thank them for their participation in that process. We are now getting to work on the necessary statutory agreements that we have to develop for that project with the Department of Finance and with LA Metro for the funding, full funding to be made available for that project. So again, while we didn't meet in August, I just thought it was worthwhile to recap several of the activities that have been ongoing over the course of the last several weeks. In terms of future board meetings, just a reminder, our October meeting will be held in Sacramento on October 15th. At that meeting, the board will receive the reports requested from our early train operator. regarding the side-by-side on investment options, and from our consultant group, KPMG, on the refined business case for the Merced to Bakersfield option. At the request of Board Member Arambula, we are also scheduled to hold our November board meeting in Fresno on November 19th. Among other items at this hearing, the board will hear the staff recommendation for advancing the track and systems RFQ into the RFP phase. This is an important step so that a final decision of the TNS contractor can come to the board in June of 2020. Okay. And then lastly, I just wanted to answer one comment that was made about documents that we have available or don't have available on our website. And mostly it's just to acknowledge and say that like all state agencies and California government, we've gone through a process of remediating our documents that are available on our websites to ensure that they are ADA compliant prior to them being available on the website. We remediated several thousand pages of documents and declared on July 1st that all the documents on our website were indeed remediated and ADA compliant. There are some documents that had to come down off the website while we remediate those documents. I think the best example is our prior business plans. All of them came off for some time while we remediate those. They will be fully remediated before they're available once again on the website. This is not a process or a project that is limited to high-speed rail. It is a broad project with all state agencies to ensure compliance with the ADA. And so I just wanted to make that clarification. That concludes my CEO report for today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are.
I have one quick question. You just explain in English for the public what remediation is underway, what that means for the website.
I'll do my best. In essence, there are documents that are available on the website that are difficult for somebody with disability to access or use tools or equipment they may have at home to read those documents. Sometimes it involves a voice read over or other things. There are color graphics that are a part of the solution. So, like I said, all state agencies had to review the documents on their website and assure that they are remediated to make that process much more accessible for any individual with a disability that needs that assistance. And so the process is what we call a paper remediation process to make sure the documents, when they're back on the website, are compliant. And that's what we did. There's a whole guideline and entity that produces what the standards are, and we work to meet those standards.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Brian? Okay, thank you.
Danny, wait,
Oh, did you have one? Sir, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah. As I've said in the past, my concerns are that we have this 119-mile requirement, and we need to make sure we get this done in a very, very tight timeline. So I couldn't help but looking at the article yesterday. I wanted to ask just one or two quick questions. The one piece that got my attention was that, and whether it's accurate or not, I wanted to get a little clarification, that we're looking at 4 out of 50 bridges, viaducts, et cetera, actually starting work or having work on them. Can you tell me where that is? Because that sounded like an extraordinary, difficult goal to meet in the next couple of years.
I'm sorry, can you restate the question?
Yeah,
I missed.
Again, I don't know the accuracy of the article or that sort of thing, but it indicated that only 4 of 50 bridges, viaducts, and other structures are actually having work on them. I'm assuming that's in the 119 corridor from Madera to.
Yeah, I mean, the article covered the 119
Yeah.
mile construction set
Yeah.
from CPs 1 to 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, that seemed like an extraordinary number. I mean, could you give us an update about where that is, Joe, whoever?
Yes, sir. What's important about CP23 is that majority of those structures are type 2 structures. They're not on critical path. The great news is right now is that we've just renegotiated the CDFW permits, which allows us basically to finalize the wildlife permeability issues associated with these major type 1 structures, the long viaducts. What we have right now on the critical path is those designs have begun and are advancing, and we're planning for the early start of construction for those structures. I acknowledge that there's only basically 7 structures right now with regards to CP2, 3 that are underway, but what's more importantly is we're about ready to launch into these Longs viaducts, which is the critical path for the program to achieve RO.
Okay, but from my perspective, that whole 119 is sort of a critical path. I'm not talking in a technical term here, but
It is, sir. Yeah, the 119 is a critical path, but you have to acknowledge that there are specific work items on the combined schedules that drive the critical path of
Right.
the program. The critical path of the program is on these long structures that have been delayed with regards to the wildlife permeability associated with the ATCs that go back to time of award when the guideway was dropped to the deck.
okay, so we're still, I mean, on the critical path and the entire 119, still looking at meeting the deadlines as required by the FRA at whatever period of time, 2022?
Yes, I mean, as we've stated before, the deadline for the construction work that we have to complete in the 119 is daunting.
Yeah.
And particularly in light of the fact that a lot of the first order work, project development work, right-of-way, third-party agreements and other things were not completed at an earlier point. However, Joe has led a task force that goes down to the valley every week on CPs 1, 2, 3, and 4, goes through a checklist of the things that we got to get done. And as we discussed in the the F&A committee prior to the full board, there is a plan that Joe will be coming forward with to F&A in October that lays out exactly where we are in right-of-way, where we are in third-party agreements, and how
Okay.
we'll move the work forward.
Yeah,
to
and
meet the RO
I
deadline.
appreciate that. I mean, I know it's an enormous task, and it's been an issue that from day one on my presence on this board, right away, and third-party relocation was an enormous, complex and difficult. So you referenced that you're looking at policies and procedures, and that, I'm assuming, is what you're referring to in the article, that we're actually putting some new procedures and policies together to get our hands around the third-party and the relocation issues and the right-of-way issues?
Well, when you say policies and procedures, I mean, what we're doing is executing agreements
Yeah.
with some of the third-party partners that were not in place. Things like, access agreements to move the utilities from one
Okay,
location
but so those are not,
to
in other words,
another.
you're moving the ball on those agreements, but there's not any actual policy type shift on how you're doing it. It's just you're getting down, knuckling down, and getting it done.
I mean, Joe, if there's anything you want to add, I would say this. This is about putting your head down and doing the work.
Yeah.
And so you go down there and you look at what the challenges are, and all of them are, as Joe articulated earlier, the F&A committee, are a project by project,
Right.
challenge by challenge effort. As I said, Joe has led a team that includes our right-of-way folks, our third-party commercial folks, and others. We go down and we take up each of these issues one by one. And he has a 20-page matrix in CP1, about a 45-page matrix in CP2-3, and about a 20-page in CP4. And you just go through and you check off the list as you accomplish the tasks.
Okay,
And
well,
that's
all
the
I can-
process that we're involved
I
with.
appreciate that, and the frustration is not now, in the past, that we didn't actually take these as seriously as we should have, because that's what gotten us into this bind now. And maybe there's ability to do multiple, instead of one at a time, have 2 or 3 teams and do them all one at a time, so that you're doing 2 or 3 in a day, or whatever the heck it is. But I know it's a daunting task. I just want to make sure we're staying focused as a board, as well as, on the authority, that we meet the 119 as
Yeah.
as
I mean,
much as
Joe
possible.
also mentioned at the F&A, that's worth repeating here, that we are applying some what's called Lean Six Sigma principles to the right-of-way
Okay.
process, where you cut out any inefficient parts of that process to streamline it, move as quickly as we can. That's a process we have.
Lean
underway.
Six
Right.
Sigma?
Lean Six Sigma, which is essentially a process of making sure that your decisions are efficient, that you're cutting
Yeah.
out any unnecessary steps.
Okay, that
and
sounds
you're
like
moving
a
forward as
new
quickly as
policy
you
to
can.
me, which is making me feel happy. We could have done a Lean Six Sigma 2 years ago. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So, all right, thank you.
Sure. Joe.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Please, Bonnie.
Well, first of all, Brian, I want to thank you for coming down to Los Angeles. Ernie and I are really pleased to participate And for all of those who say, is it going to happen in Southern California, I think that MOU goes a long way to answer people's questions. It occurred to me when you were having the FNA discussion and you mentioned that the irrigation districts, which there are so many of them, are a challenge for you to have access, make agreements with. We have 3 authority members from the Central Valley who are very well versed with the people in those irrigation districts. Joaquin, Henry Perea, and Tom Richards know the people, work with them all the time, have close relationships. So I would implore you to use our own people to further your desire to get some of these contracts done. Nobody knows better than these guys.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Just for the record, I'd like to note that I consider myself half a member from the Central Valley. I've spent half my life there.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
That makes 4.
3.5.
Joe, earlier today, I asked a question relative to construction and the amount of construction. And maybe for the full board, I'd like to ask it again. The construction activity for CP 1, 2, 3, and 4 amounts to about $20 million for ending July. Could you give us a rough or order of magnitude what it may have been then for August?
Sir, right now, I don't have the August numbers, but in July, CP23 was 17.7 was the approved invoice. 13 billion with regards to CP1 as reported. Million, sorry. Always think big here. So, and then CP4 was at 8. Those are what's in the minutes of the FNA. So August is going to grow probably by another 10 or 15%. And you're seeing too, the biggest indicator right now of that is if you go back and you look at the number of workforce on the jobs, it's doubled since March. It's on a steady climb.
So what CP1, 2, 3, and 4, cumulatively, you would say it's about 15%, 10 to 15% more?
Approximately 10 to 15. I have to go check, sir. Just swagments. We're making incremental gains.
All I was looking for is that graph to turn the other way.
No, it is. And if you look at it, the curve's has been up for the last couple of months. And the biggest indication, as I said, is CP4 is held at 8 million for the last 2 months.
I think that's the reason it's so important for us to at least get, what we have concretely. We knew at the end of July it was this number, and if we can't get a hard number for August or September, that it would help us if you give us at least best guesstimates or.
Yes, sir. We can do that, and we can also I monitor the KPIs with regards to weekly, with regards to performance on PG&E, and with regards to the number of people out on the job site as a leading edge indicator of performance.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think if we just implement what we talked about in FNA today with your reports in October, it'll give everybody a lot more comfort, not necessarily comfort, but we'll have the information that I think that we can draw the conclusions as to where we are and how rapidly we're getting there. So I think the plan is in place, and we'll look forward for your implementation of it and then delivery to FNA next month.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Then move on to item number